You are listening to the No Gimmicks, Just Sweat podcast with your host, Eric Logan. No Gimmicks, Just Sweat is dedicated to hearing the journeys and unique stories behind an athlete's training and what drives them. Get inspired to own your life and make the impossible possible. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Also, please take a few seconds to rate the show and drop me a review. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the No Gimmicks, Just Sweat podcast. And today we have the awesome Jess Weatherby as our guest. Jess, how are you doing today?
I am doing well, Eric. Thank you so much. I am humbled and flattered to be on your podcast and grateful for the opportunity. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for being on the show. I appreciate having you here. All right, so as we start with all shows, we're going to start with a little icebreaker, just some rapid fire questions so that the listeners get to know you better as well as myself, even though I do follow you online, but just to kind of find out like, oh, I didn't realize that. Those types of things. Okay? All right. First one, morning training or evening training?
Evening.
All right. Now, this one might be kind of obvious, but you may surprise me because other people surprise me with the questions as well. Cardio training or strength training?
Can I say both? Strength training is my first love, but I do a lot of cardio too. So. Okay.
All right. Dumbbells or kettlebells?
Oh, gosh, these are hard. Good grief. Dumbbells.
Dumbbell. Okay. Favorite form of cross training?
CrossFit.
All right. Least favorite exercise?
Don't get mad at me. Running.
All right. The first thing you do after a workout?
Protein. Absolutely.
All right. Favorite, well, not favorite, but dream race or event you want to participate in?
Oh, I've had a try. I'm eyeballing half a few years now, and I'd love to get it done.
Okay, what was that again? Because you kind of broke up a little bit.
I'm sorry. Half Ironman.
Oh, half Ironman. Oh, okay, cool. She's moving into the world of multi-sport.
Yeah.
All right, last one. If you can train with any celebrity or athlete, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, goodness. There's a few of my girls from Titan Games that are just absolutely off the charts athletes. I would love to train with probably Margot Alvarez. Girls, any of those CrossFit girls are amazing.
Okay. All right. So with every episode, we kind of go into guess their individual story. And the story is, I always kind of break it down to think of yourself as a superhero. This is your origin story. How did you gain your superpowers? Your superpowers are who you are as an athlete. Just, share what you want to share on that to kind of motivate and inspire our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm kind of a fitness newbie, which surprises a lot of people. So I'm 43, and a little bit after I turned 39, I kind of hit a breaking point in my life. I woke up one morning and I physically was unable to get out of bed. I'd always been pretty normal weight. I've got 4 kids and had somewhat, maintained my health up to that point, but I wasn't, I had no background in anything athletic at all. I didn't play sports as a kid. I didn't play sports in high school. Absolutely never had been in a weight room in my life. I think I had at a YMCA once on an elliptical, and that was the extent of athleticism. So that being said, I'd always had kind of some lower back and hip problems my whole life. And of course I had really big babies. And so that was kind of exacerbated through pregnancies and carrying heavy babies and such. And, so I came to that point where, I wake up one morning and I can't get out of bed. and I've got 4 kids to take care of. I'm a homeschool parent as well. And so it was, it was kind of terrifying to be, I think, reasonably young and experience that. And I ended up, to make a long story short, I ended up going to 3 different sports medicine doctors, orthopedic surgeons, and I found out that I had a lot of problems. Basically without heads on my femurs, so I didn't have the top of my thigh bone, the little knot that fits in your hip socket just wasn't there. My hip sockets were shallow and they were deformed. My pelvis was completely misaligned. Um, I had cam and pincher and bone spurs that had actually grown out of my hip sockets to wrap around my femurs since I didn't have heads to keep them in there. And on top of that, I had labral tears on both sides. They're bilateral. And the worst was on my left. So I was really messed up. And I was told at first that I needed to have immediate labral tear surgery, which was going to be, yeah, yeah. The recovery on that about 8 weeks in bed, 12 weeks on crutches, and a year or more of I'm sorry.
Yeah, I lost you for a moment.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Where do we need to pick?
Yeah, it's like you're cutting in and out for a moment.
Okay, let me hold the phone a little bit closer.
Okay.
Where did you lose me at?
I think it was when you were in bed. You were bedridden. Yeah.
Yeah, so I couldn't get out of bed. And did you get the part about the kids and the kind of the backstory?
Yes, yes.
So I couldn't get out of bed. Obviously, at my age, that was pretty terrifying. I had no idea what was going on. And I ended up going to 3 different orthopedic surgeons and found out that I had a whole host of problems. So my femurs were deformed from birth. I basically had no femur head, which is kind of the knot at the top of your femur, the big part of the bone that hooks into your hip. I didn't have one.
Wow.
Yeah, I had shallow sockets, which meant that not only did I not have the part of the femur to hook in there, but my hips really would not even accommodate what I had. So to compensate, my body grew bone spurs to try to hold everything together, which severely limited my range of motion as far as anything regarding your hips, a hip hinge. Just squatting down was something that I couldn't even do. I had cam and pincher impingement as well, which kept my hips locked up. I had labral tears, bilateral labral tears. So they were on both sides, a pretty severe one on the left side. And I had bad piriformis syndrome, which is when your piriformis muscle is so inflamed that it kind of grabs onto your sciatic nerve and doesn't let go, which was the reason why my lower body literally locked up, and I lost the ability, like I said, to walk, to get out of bed, to do anything, to care for my kids.
Right. Wow. So did you, were there any signs before, you just couldn't get up that morning? Had you had any signs like, just, like maybe days before, months before, years before?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a lifelong problem. And I just didn't know about it. My whole life I had dealt with just pretty nonstop, excruciating back pain and hip pain. Didn't know the cause. I just assumed it was from everyday wear and tear. You know, even as a young person, I had it, but obviously carrying kids around and pulling little red wagons and things like that. I just thought it was it was just wear and tear from being a mom. So, it was something that when you are a parent, obviously you're doing, I had 4 little ones, and, they always came first. their issues were always prioritized. And so as moms, we usually set ourselves on the back burner, which is exactly what I did.
Wow. Wow. So once you were diagnosed and kind of found out everything that was going on, what happened next?
The surgeons, the orthos that I've visited said that I needed an immediate labral repair surgery. Had an arthrogram, confirmed all that good stuff. Said that I needed surgery for the labral repair, and that was an extremely extensive surgery. So I would be in bed and have tubes coming in and out of my body for 6 to 8 weeks on crutches and or bedbound for a minimum of 12 weeks. And then I was staring down years of physical therapy. And on top of that, that was going just to be a temporary solution for the pain, the muscle lockdown that I was in. And I would have to have a hip around age 40, which that's not something anybody wants to hear at my age. I mean, you hear the horror stories of hip replacement, and you think, I'm not even quite 40 years old. And obviously it was scary. I went home and had to process all of it. For me, the scariest thing or the worst aspect of that was I am a homeschool mom. I am a mother. I am a wife. We have some livestock and things to take care of. And being bedridden for a day is not an option. Being bedridden for, 3 or 4 months and possibly years and years of therapy was not something that I didn't have time for that in my life. That was absolutely not an option. And so once I kind of worked through the fear and everything, I sat down and I thought, okay, I'm reading all of this and it sounds scary, but maybe there's other options before surgery, or besides surgery. So I something people don't know about me is I'm pretty strong, but my brain power is a little bit stronger than my body. And science has always been my wheelhouse. And so I researched the surgeries. I researched the recidivism rates, which are the rates at which they fail and have to be redone. The long-term quality of life was the most important to me. Were these surgeries something that were even going to help me? And what I discovered is that the quality of life for those that end up having these surgery, generally speaking, in upwards of 90 to 95%, after a year or two of therapy, there is no improvement in the quality of life. And so it made no sense to me to go through with a surgery that really offered no benefits and that stole me away from my family for such a long period of time. And the other scary things that the doctors told me is, like I mentioned, I didn't work out prior to this. I was not involved in fitness in any way, no sports, no athletics, nothing. But, I've got kids, and all three surgeons said, basically, you have no options physically going forward. They said no running, no lifting, no high intensity training, no cycling, absolutely nothing. And, again, as a mom trying to keep up with my kids, that also was not an option. So I kind of did my own thing.
Wow. Well, the only thing I had heard from you was basically what was, mentioned on the Titan games was about the hip. And to hear all this now, and looking back, I go like, whoa. If there was ever a person to have an S on their chest, it's you right now.
No, not at all. No,
But
it's an M for mom. That would be what's on my chest. That was
well,
definitely my motivation.
well, and that's what I was going to say is that you've shown that you're a great example that hey, a mother who I want to be there for my kids, so I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure I am there for my kids.
Yes, sir. That was
So,
absolutely.
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that was absolutely did that. You hit the nail on the head. That was entirely my motivation. It had nothing to do with aesthetics or my appearance. I mean, everybody likes to drop, a few pounds and look a little better, but, it was all about functionality. And like you said, being able to be there, not just for my kids, but my grandkids. And
Mm-hmm.
what I'm looking at, that wasn't an option.
So, how did you get started? Was there anyone that kind of inspired you or helped you to kind of get started improving your health and improving, strengthening your body?
No, I really just did a lot of homework on my own. I read a lot of research papers, a lot of studies. I got on a lot of blogs and read experiences that people had had with all these surgeries. And what I ended up doing is I decided to rehab myself as if I had had these surgeries. And so I kind of wrote up my own little protocol, and I started out with just body weight exercises,
Mm-hmm.
just things that would strengthen my posterior chain. I was getting no activation. I discovered I had extremely strong but shortened hip flexors, which were causing a lot of my low back pain. And I was getting no activation with my glutes and my hamstrings because of the way my body had kind of learned to respond and move with all of the skeletal issues that I had. And so I just started very small with body weight stuff, slowly learned how to activate my posterior chain. Um, After that, I kind of started working with those loop bands, or the booty bands that some people call them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then eventually lightweight dumbbells, and then lightweight dumbbells with some plyometrics. And, 9 months later, I'm in a squat rack, and I was doing things that I was told I would never do with surgery, and I did them without surgery.
That is amazing, and it kind of shows that even though we may hear that, yeah, you can't do this or you shouldn't do this, if you do your own research and you try, you may be able to get to a point of that.
It absolutely does. I'm not trying to give anybody medical advice, but I'm a firm believer that you will always know your own body and your own limits better than anybody else. And, you can't blame the medical field. It is a one size fits all, unfortunately, in a lot of cases. You go to a doctor for help, and they have a protocol that they follow. Unfortunately, that's not always the right move for everybody. It's not always the best move. And I think sometimes we kind of look for the easy button, and sadly the easy button for a lot of people is just, okay, let's go have the surgery, okay, let's pop the pill, whatever it is. Because on the other end, it took time and effort to research and trial and error, to figure out things that worked for me and things that didn't. You're a cyclist, I'm a cyclist, and I've done a lot of long cycles. And a funny thing is that, one of the ranges of motion that they encourage, hip replacement or hip repair people to do first is cycling. And I can tell you that that was actually the last thing that I added in. It was something that didn't work for me right away. So, there is trial and error, but when you set your mind to it, the human body is more than capable. There are, all kinds of broken things within my body, obviously, things that I was born with. But when you give the human body the tools that it needs through, being educated, through exercise, through nutrition, it is more than capable of compensating for any number of issues that you may have. And I think that's something that as humans, we always need to remember. We are definitely, stronger in the places that we're broken. Absolutely.
Yes, that I could not have said that better myself. Um, so you've never have had anybody coach you, or you're pretty much self-coaching and everything?
I'm self-coached. Another injury story. After I rehabbed myself, my kids were in a little athletic program here in Waco, and they kind of had a boot camp and strength training class. And once I felt confident in what I had done at home, I thought it would be fun to jump in. And actually, within, I think I was immediately the strongest woman in that entire gym and the strength training classes, my squats, my deadlifts, all that stuff. And I was very successful in the boot camp classes as well. I think I was very motivated to succeed at something that I was told that I couldn't do. So I was very focused and determined. But shortly after that, I did something silly. We'll talk about OCR later, but I was honed my OCR skills, and I ran. There's a 9-foot dock, and it had a railing on top of it. And I ran, and I jumped up and was going to swing over it like I was, climbing the 9-foot wall at a Spartan race. And I jumped up on it, and the railing actually broke.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what that says about me and my weight, but it broke, and I came down, and my left knee snapped. And so I had a full ACL rupture, tore my MCL, tore my LCL, and also had a meniscus tear all on my left knee. And, it's funny, after I had been through everything with my hip, of course, when you hear all that kind of stuff, again, the prognosis was surgery. ACLs do not grow back. So, there's surgery. Typically, if you want to have an ACL after you rupture it, the others will repair, but for most people, they repair much weaker. So it was a pretty depressing moment, but I went home and I thought, I've overcome so much with the hip. I'm not going to quit now. And kind of did my own thing again, did a lot of homework. I was deadlifting within a week. And as for the gym, they didn't want me back because I was a liability, which I understand. So I actually left the gym, and that's when I started doing everything on my own at home. We weren't coached there. It wasn't a personal training. It was just exercises on a board, and this is what you do. But that was actually probably the best thing that happened to me, if you can believe that a complete triple tear of your knee is a good thing. Training at home was absolutely the best thing that happened to me. So on an injured knee, on a knee with a triple tear and a meniscus tear, I ended up hitting a PR, a deadlift PR within 2 weeks. I was running within 4 weeks. I ran an 8-mile OCR, obstacle course race, 8 weeks after those tears. And 12 weeks later, I ran a half marathon Spartan Beast and completed it pretty successfully. So again, no surgery. It was just an issue of mind over matter for me, and educating myself on how do I give my body the best opportunity to heal itself. And it seemed to work out for me.
Okay. I'm sitting here rubbing my knee now, because that whole story made my knee kind of like, ooh, wait a minute. So as soon as you said it, it just like my knee kind of woke up and said, wait, what happened?
Uh-oh.
But I do can relate to you about, that, surgery is not necessarily the answer all the time. Back when I first started my fitness journey, and I think it was like 2014, I'd been doing it for a couple of months, and it's just it was a mistake in the gym. I heard a pop on my shoulder, and I ignored it. And I'm like, I did it. I just popped. And later that day, my arm just completely died. I was at work, and all of a sudden my arm just went, and just not numb or just not like, hurt. It just died. It felt like it just died, like it wasn't there anymore. and I pretty much had screwed up my rotator cuff.
Mm.
And you know, the option where he's like, you can let it heal naturally, but you're gonna have issues probably later on, or we can do surgery. And I was like, yeah, you're not gonna do surgery. And I just let it heal naturally. And you know, within I think like 3 weeks, I was running a race. You know, pretty much, you know, he looked at me like I was crazy, but he's like, as long as you're not, you know, flailing your arms around like you're crazy, he said, you should be fine. So I can kind of relate to, you know, even like you were saying a little bit earlier, that the immediate fix is, okay, have surgery or pop that pill and you know, you're good to go.
Yeah, you certainly can. And there's nothing easy about, man, rotator cuff stuff. That
Yeah.
difficult journey for you.
Yeah. I can still feel it sometimes, so I have to be careful going overhead with any type of heavy weights. But you know, but as far as just general, you know, motions and stuff, just general stuff, it feels fine. He said the worst thing is, he said probably when you get older, you know, you may feel some discomfort in it, but he said other than that, he said everything actually healed up perfectly.
That's awesome. That's amazing. But isn't that how always anyway? I mean, we all have, we all have to be mindful of our bodies, and that's one interesting thing. It strikes me in fitness that, you have social media platform. I guess I have a little one. Um, and what I notice on a lot on social media is, there's like this push for everybody to um, follow certain form and a certain style or whatever. And, it's interesting. I'm a believer in good form. I think you can hurt yourself on any exercising, including like, for me, I can twist funny pulling laundry out of the washing machine. But, everybody, our kinetic chains are all a little bit different. And, I really get frustrated when I see different people giving form critiques to different people online, because you really just don't know
Right.
how someone else's body moves and what someone else's body has been through. And there may be a reason for different movement patterns. Good grief, our different heights, the different lengths of our levers, form, past soft tissue injuries like you're describing, all of those things really play into it. And so you have to take, I think, online, and even in person, I'll tell you that fitness professionals in person, um, are equally as bad about giving you on a generic um, best practice. And if they don't know your history and they don't know what you're working with, they're just not qualified, I don't think, to give advice in that way. So that's just my little cautionary tale to some of your listeners. Be mindful what you get online. It might not be best for you at all.
Again, don't even get me started with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna get started on that. Because I have stories and stuff I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are things that I've seen that have just made me just cringe. I'm like, ooh, yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about training for you. What does a week of training look like for you? And how do you balance that in being a homeschooling mom?
Well, I do want to encourage parents out there. So as I mentioned before, when my kids were younger and little, I didn't work out, and I don't think there's anything wrong with parents carving out that time to work out. I can tell you that for me, I mean, God's timing was perfect in all of this stuff. Even though I started later and I didn't get under a barbell until age 40, it was obviously something that I ended up being pretty good at. And, I find time. My kids are a little bit older. I do homeschool for them. They're involved in sports. They have extracurricular activities. So balancing it is a challenge. But, before I get into that, just as a preface, just as an encouragement to other parents out there, if you have that 30 minutes a day or that hour a day to, um, you know, devote to yourself, to give, to, to train and to work out, I think that's fantastic. But if you don't, don't be discouraged where you have to skip days. Don't be discouraged if you have to skip months or years, and just know that it is absolutely never too late. As someone who started at age 40, and you know, I, I don't say this to brag, but my numbers as far as my lifts and my training go are all in an elite category. If I chose to compete at powerlifting, or even my numbers on rowers and ski ergs are um, pretty high ranking. And so don't be discouraged and think that, life is over at age 40 and that you're ever too old to accomplish anything. But my training, every day is different. So I work it in essentially when I can. I prefer to train in the afternoon. That normally works out with our schedule. I have to train early afternoons during football season because we're, gone from about 4 to, 7:30 at night, typically. Um, Sometimes I have to get up at the crack of dawn to get it done. Sometimes I am in the middle of the day at lunchtime getting it done. And there are absolutely times where I walk out of my gym at 10 o'clock at night and I get it done. So my schedule does revolve around my family, and I make it work when I can. My typical training session, an hour and a half to 2 hours. Um, Most days I'm able to get that done all at once. And I'm very blessed to have just an awesome home gym. Shout out to my husband for, um, some women have issues with shopping and clothes. I have issues with gym equipment, and so I'm grateful for that. So it's more convenient for me. I would encourage anybody that's lacking in time, the home gym. I don't have to pack up. I don't have to worry about grabbing all my gear. I just walk 20 feet out my door and there I am. But I train 6 to 7 days a week. I don't schedule rest days because my rest days tend to be scheduled for me. If it's, you know, Friday night lights that take up my time, or another activity with the kids, homeschool projects that we have to work on, the rest days tend to happen naturally. So I don't particularly intentionally schedule a rest day, but they absolutely happen. So that's probably the time devoted to training.
Okay. So he doesn't have, your husband doesn't have to worry about, a new pair of shoes. He just has to worry about a new set of weights.
Well, athletic shoes are, I like.
All right. So you are also an OCR athlete. OCR is obstacle course race.
Yes.
You are the first OCR person I've interviewed on the show.
Awesome.
So can you kind of explain to the listeners what an OCR race is?
Yeah, so OCR stands for obstacle course racing. And if the listeners have seen Spartan races, Savage races, it's basically a lot of running with obstacles in your path in the way. The obstacles are from doing these wild and crazy monkey bars that are probably, 50 feet across and go up and down to, swinging on a rig with suspended rings and having to go across it, jumping over, 9, 10. I've even done some 14-foot walls, just different. Obviously the big fan going through like muddy water and going up and down at different walls and things like that. So yeah, it's just it's a lot of running with a lot of most of them are upper body intensive obstacles to kind of make it through. It's like being a kid on a playground, but you just run an awful lot.
Okay. So what attracted you to OCR?
Well, that was actually one of the things that pushed me to get fit, to be honest with you. After I had done my rehab, I had a pop-up ad or something come over for a Spartan race. And, I'd seen them on TV. I kind of knew what they were about. And I just I've always been a weirdo, I guess. And it looked like a lot of fun, and it looked like a way to push my boundaries. And I got online and there was not a Spartan race nearby at the time. There was a Savage race close to Dallas. And when I registered, I read it wrong and I thought that it was going to be a 3 mile race. And when I got closer to it, I realized, oh no, it's going to be a 5.5+ mile race. And now, mind you, as an adult at this time, I was just now starting to strength train, and I had never run a mile in my entire life. In my entire life, not even as a kid. I was the kid that was on the track, and you're doing the Presidential Fitness Award, and there's the kid, having a heat stroke in the corner. That was me. So never had run a mile, but I figured, hey, if I can, get through this hip stuff, I can end up walking it if I have to. Well, I get there and it ended up being, I believe, 8.2 miles that day. And I successfully ran it. I ran the entire time. And at that race, I only failed 2 out of 28 obstacles. So um, I thoroughly enjoyed myself and, I was proud just to admit it, to be honest, to
Right.
live through it.
And how many OCRs have you competed in?
Competed, I competed, so my first year I ran the 1, 2, 3, I believe I ran 4. And in all of those races, I think I ran, no, 5. I ran 2 Savages and 3 Spartans, and got the taste of what Spartan calls a trifecta, which is you complete the, what ends up being about 4 miles. At that time, it was 10 miles and then a 14-mile race. And so the next year, which would have been, I think, 2019, I started to run competitively. I don't train OCR like an OCR athlete traditionally would. I just strength train. And, I mentioned I'm not a very fast runner. I can do it. I'm just not really skilled at it. But I ended up my first year competing. I did achieve elite status, which allowed me to compete not just in age group, but also with the elite group. I placed, I think, I had 3 fourth places, 2 first places, and 1 fifth place in the races that I competed in. I did have the opportunity to compete again this year, one time. I don't know if I'll get the opportunity just with scheduling. Um, I think I got 6th at that race, which was a little bit disappointing, but as I mentioned, I'm not a skilled runner, and I can tell you that a lot of these people that have unfortunately been out of a gym during the whole COVID lockdowns, they have definitely been outside running because the paces at the race that I've been to are insane and extremely impressive. So that's kind of my OCR history.
Okay. So, and then from there, you on a little show that's called the Titan Games. Um, I'm gonna admit, I love the Titan Games. It's just the head-to-head competition. But a lot of people may not know what the Titan Games are. Can you explain what the Titan Games are and why you decided to compete in it?
Yeah. So obviously it's produced by DJ by The Rock. And it's like you said, it's they put athletes in brackets and head-to-head competitions on different obstacles. And if you win, you go on to the next round. I discovered, I guess, and doing some what I later found out to be strongman work. I started chronicling that through my hip recovery and my knee recovery. I started posting the things that I could do, and as I did, I guess my social media kind of grew, and a lot of people kind of took notice, refer to as my kind of freakish strength. I'm not a big person. I don't think that I look like I can lift and drag and pull the things that I pulled. But I was outside. I was, I've done pulls where I pull a 1-ton pickup with a gooseneck trailer loaded with 2 other vehicles, 21,000-pound pull down the road. I was dragging 1,000 pounds on Prowler. My deadlifts were over 3 at the time. They're over 4 now. I was squatting over 3. So I was putting up some big numbers, and people took notice. And simultaneously, I had quite a few Instagram friends actually reach out and say, "You've got to try out for this show." Some producers came across my some producers from the show, and they took notice, and they said, "We want you to apply for the show." So there's a long process. I think it was about 9 months of just kind of watch and wait, and submitted some of the things that I could do, and made kind of a little video montage. Did a submission video, applied for it, found out, like I said, about 9 months later, that I had been selected to go and compete in a combine. It's basically like an NFL combine where, they had picked quite a few athletes from across the country to, compete for a spot on the show. So flew out to LA and did the combine. I was the oldest woman there by about a decade.
Oh, wow.
And made the show. So
Wow.
went to Atlanta, and I was so there's another gentleman, actually, the guy that won the Titan Games. He is actually the same age as me, and we were the 2 old people on the show, but surrounded definitely by a lot of youth and a lot of experience. We had Olympic athletes, we had CrossFit Games athletes, we had nationally ranked strongmen, some just insanely talented people. Which they were fantastic to learn from and be around. Um, it was a cool experience. It was interesting. It's referred to in our non-disclosures as a reality TV game show. So I'll leave it there. I learned a lot about TV. I learned a lot about, there's a lot of it. It's the TV part was stressful. I did not do very well, obviously. There's a lot more to, I guess, the goings on at Titan Games as far as the competitions. What they show on TV, it's real work, not always exactly how everything played out, but it was in real life. But it was a cool experience, and it was really it was a blessing to just go and learn and see all of that. Meeting the athletes that I competed with was probably hands down the best experience, because seeing what they can do and the ways that they push their body and have achieved success was definitely inspirational to me.
Okay. But yeah, it seems like it was a lot, just to kind of get on and compete. So I can imagine that the amount of pressure you had to deal with was just high.
Oh yeah. And a lot of the competitors had experience, obviously, with physical competitions. Were lifelong athletes, been doing this their whole life. So obviously I was lacking in that area. And yeah, I mean, the pressure, the mental was really hard. As a mom, that was actually the first time I'd ever been away from my family. I had like one kid go off to summer camp, or, this one spends the night with a friend, but I'd never been away from my family. So that was probably the most difficult part for me, is not having my kids nearby, and dealing with the stress of that. Um, the, yeah, as far as the competition itself, it's a wild ride for sure. There's so much. We were working 14 to 16-hour days just getting prepared for different kinds of shots, which sounds crazy. I have a lot of respect now for models and movie stars that have to do like these promos and B-rolls and hero shots is what they called it for us. And it was work. Yeah. So it was, I definitely don't regret it. There's things that I would change, but in general, it was a cool experience for sure. And, you know, uh, as you said, having to compete just to be on the show, I definitely feel like, hey, I showed up. I'm broken and I'm old, and you know, there's a lot of people that didn't make it, so it was a blessing for sure.
Yes, it definitely was a blessing, given that, you said you weren't an athlete, and to make it to that level, and compete on national TV against people who, like you were saying, were athletes, lifelong athletes, that's something. So yeah, that's nothing to sneeze at or take for granted.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I certainly don't take it for granted, and I hope that I don't think everybody has to become an extreme athlete or push things as far as I do, but I hope that for anybody listening, I hope that that's just an inspiration for determination and will and focus can accomplish. I really just want people to know that whatever your physical limitations are, you can conquer them, whether it be birth defects, broken bones, being told that you can't. I, I just want people to know that you always can if you put your mind to it.
Yes, exactly. Usually I have a question saying, what is your message to people who say it's too late to start? But this entire conversation has been the answer to that, question. Your whole life and everything that you've gone through, you know, is the message to people who say it's too late to start or I can't.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. And that's really my whole purpose and what I share on social media. I don't. I was a sponsored athlete for a time with a company. We had a little bit different values. I was a barbell, kettlebell, dumbbell girl, and they were looking for more resistance bands and things like that, which just were not my wheelhouse or my preference. But beyond that, I don't have, it's not a moneymaker for me. I'm not selling a program. Um, I'm not trying to sell a product. I'm really out there just to show what is possible. And, women or men over 40, under 40, whatever your issues are, you can absolutely, like you said, that is the entirety of my message is that you can.
Yes, yes. And if you are a good representative of that, you are the ambassador for inspiration and motivation in my book.
Well, that's too kind of for no. Thank you. I appreciate that. I do hope my story encourages somebody just to jump out there and try it. And you can try it on your own.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right. So what is a non-athletic fact about you that most people don't?
That most people don't know. Well, we've mentioned it a few times. I'm a mom of four. I am also a homeschool mom. I'm a total science geek, if you can't tell. Something else. Let's see. That people don't know about me. Well, I think honestly, at this point in life, I'm on the verge of becoming a creepy cat lady. So there's that's probably also will double as a what's your most embarrassing fact, and it's that I have too many cats. So.
What's too many cats?
Too many cats. Well, here's the sad thing. So we had a stray wander up, and she brought us 5 kittens.
Okay.
She had think 5 adult cats, and we now have 5 kittens. So I'd say that qualifies as definitely too many.
Okay.
You can't argue with that either
No,
because
I can't. Nope, I can't. All right. As we get ready to close, what's next for you? Is there anything specific you're training, preparing for? Anything you have going on for the rest of 2021, or something that you're looking forward to in 2022?
Yeah, so there's nothing specific right now. I've mentioned I do have my eye on a try, a half Ironman try. We'll see about that. Um, I am working on my running. I'm working on my run form. I would love to improve that. I think that's the final, kind of cog in my fitness wheel. Is I want to be better at that for sure. No, I think that's the thing that motivates me about fitness. So I'm kind of neurotic, I guess, and I just go with what makes me happy. I do strongman stuff. I do powerlifting. I do CrossFit. I do OCR. I do cycling. I run. Do a lot of rucking and hiking, and that's the thing that motivates me. It's just I'm amazed at the human body. I'm amazed at and so immensely grateful at what I can do now. That I just like seeing what comes next. And so I kind of leave that wide open. And there's always a possibility, I think, of competing in strongman and powerlifting. Someday I would love for my kids to be able to say that they've got a powerlifting grandma. So um, I'd love to try that out. But for me, long term, I again, I want to have options. I don't want to go home when I'm 60, 70, 80 years old and sit in a rocking chair. I want to be able to rock climb with my grandkids. I want to be able to, go on a long cycle in the mountains. So my goals in general are getting super duper strong, um, staying healthy, and just longevity.
You're already on the right course. I follow you and I see you. I see everything that you do on a regular basis. So you're already in the right path to going there.
I hope so. That is definitely my goal. Everything else is fun. I love competing, but keeping this body healthy and able until my twilight years is definitely what it's all about.
Yes, definitely. Jess, thank you for being on the show. This was a great conversation.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to share and hopefully just inspire others to get off the couch and get moving.
Yes, and if anybody wants to get in contact with you or follow you online, how can they do so?
Yes, on Instagram, I think it's Jess_Weatherby_lifts. And on Facebook, I'm just Jess Weatherby on Facebook. So definitely shoot me a DM and let me know that I'd love to know if you heard from this podcast. Let me know and I'll make sure and follow you back.
Jess, again, thank you for being on the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. You have a fantastic day.
All right, you do the same now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the No Gimmicks, Just Sweat podcast. We really appreciate everyone who tunes in each week. If you enjoyed today's show, please support us by subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember to tell your friends about the No Gimmicks, Just Sweat podcast, so we can continue to have awesome conversations with everyday athletes just like you. Until next time, have an amazing week.